I'm Helen, 49 years old, and I never thought I'd fall for a man like Richard Blake. He was the kind of man people whispered about in elevators and watched from a distance in the company cafeteria. Tall, sharply dressed, and always two steps ahead of everyone else. As the CEO of our investment firm, he rarely noticed people like me, middle management, divorced, trying to pay off a credit card I shouldn't have used so freely after my husband left. But one evening, after a late meeting, he lingered by my office door. His voice was smooth. "You look tired, Helen. Want to grab a drink?" I said yes before I even realized what was happening. One drink became three. Then came the dinner reservations at places I could never afford. The designer purse, just because. I knew it was wrong. He was my boss, but something about him made me feel seen, alive again. Still, I couldn't ignore the shadows in his eyes or the times he'd disappear mid-conversation to answer calls he wouldn't explain. One night, wrapped in his expensive sheets, he whispered, "Everyone has secrets, Helen. The trick is keeping them quiet." I laughed, but deep down, I knew that wasn't a joke. And 2 weeks later, I found the envelope under his desk. It had my name on it, not Helen. My full name, Helen Grace Whitmore. He wasn't supposed to know that name because I hadn't used it in 20 years. Not since I buried the truth about what happened to my sister. And ran. The next morning, I walked into the office with my heart racing. Blake's door was closed as usual, but now everything felt different. He knew my real name. That wasn't just a flirtation anymore, it was a threat. I hadn't used Whitmore since I was 28, after the police stopped investigating my sister's disappearance, after my family turned to silence instead of prayer. After I moved 3 cities away, changed jobs, and took my mother's maiden name. But now, the man I'd let into my bed had opened a part of my past I'd sealed shut. I went to my office, locked the door, and stared at the envelope again. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 2 decades ago. My sister's name, Evelyn Whitmore, circled in red ink, missing, suspected foul play, case unresolved. And under it, a handwritten note. "I know what happened, but I'm not the only one." I broke into a cold sweat. Was he threatening me or warning me? Suddenly, the walls of that glossy, high-rise firm didn't feel so safe. Everyone looked sharp, polished, like they belonged in a world of wealth and investment portfolios. But now I saw something else. Masks, secrets behind every tailored suit, especially Blake's executive assistant, Clara. She was in her early 60s, elegant in a quiet way, always with a book under her arm. That day, she gave me a glance I couldn't read. "She's too curious," I heard someone whisper near the break room. "Doesn't know how things work here." I pretended not to hear, but I did. I saw it all now. This wasn't about love or lust. This was about power. And I was tangled in something much older and darker than I'd ever imagined. I confronted Blake that evening. His office was dimly lit, city lights stretching behind him like stars over a cold battlefield. "You know who I am," I said, holding the envelope in my shaking hand. "Why?" He didn't deny it. "You think you're the only one hiding," he said calmly. "This building is made of secrets, Helen. I only opened the smallest door." I stepped closer. "What do you want from me?" He poured us both a drink. The truth. The one about Evelyn and about the trust fund she never claimed. I froze. "What trust fund?" He raised his brow. "She was set to inherit nearly $5 million from your grandfather's old mining shares, but she vanished. The account went untouched for 20 years. Until last month. I blinked. That's not possible. Oh, it's very possible. And someone claimed it. Not you. Not legally, anyway. My head was spinning. Blake leaned in. Someone forged her identity, cashed in the inheritance, and buried the transaction inside one of our partner banks overseas. I think you were meant to be the next loose end. I gripped the edge of his desk to steady myself. Why are you telling me this? He shrugged. Because I like you, and because I may need your help. With what? Finding out who's behind this, before they come for both of us. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about Evelyn, the night she disappeared, the man she was dating. His name was Thomas something. I remembered his suit, his car. I remembered the gold ring with a hawk emblem. And that emblem, I had seen it again. Just last week, on a document signed by one of Blake's board members. The next day, I walked into the boardroom with trembling hands and a fake smile. There he was, Martin Hale, the oldest member of Blake's board, sharp suit, gold hawk ring on his finger, calm, calculating eyes that scanned the room like a hawk circling prey. He didn't recognize me, or at least he pretended not to. Blake's voice echoed in the room as he presented quarterly earnings, investment returns, and credit portfolio strategies. But I barely heard a word. All I saw was that ring. After the meeting, I followed Clara to the break room. I had questions, and I was done being polite. Clara, I said, blocking the door before she could leave. What do you know about Martin Hale? She froze. Why are you asking? He dated my sister before she vanished. That ring on his finger, I've seen it before, 20 years ago. Her expression changed. She placed her book down slowly, hands trembling. I knew Evelyn, she whispered. She was smart, and she was scared. She used to wait for me at the bus stop outside the office. One day, she cried the whole ride home, said she found out something she wasn't supposed to know. I felt my knees weaken. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because back then, Clara said, her voice cracking, no one would have listened, especially not to a secretary. She looked at me, tears rising. But you're already inside. You have a voice now, Helen. Later that night, Blake handed me a flash drive. This has the offshore records. Someone's been laundering funds through our investor accounts using Evelyn's name. I opened the files and saw the signature. It wasn't Martin Hale's. It was my own, forged, dated 2 weeks ago. I stared at the screen, my name burned into the digital paper like a brand. Helen Grace Whitmore. A transaction authorization for $4.7 million. Date, 2 weeks ago. The same week Blake took me to that private island resort for business. The same week I left my phone unattended for hours, completely entranced by the fantasy of finally being cherished, desired, chosen. I felt sick. You set me up, I whispered, barely able to breathe. Blake didn't flinch. You think I need to forge anything? I've got real signatures, passwords, bank access. I could have buried this without blinking. Then why didn't you? My voice cracked. He stood slowly. Because I'm not the one framing you. I've been trying to protect you. I stepped back, heart pounding. From who? Blake reached into his drawer and pulled out a photo, a surveillance shot. Clara, meeting with Martin Hale. At night, at a bar outside the city. I shook my head. Number. That's impossible. She's not who you think she is, Blake said. She's the one who accessed the old Whitmore inheritance. She used your information to authorize the wire. I traced the login. Her system? I couldn't believe it. She told me she loved Evelyn, that she protected her. Blake cut me off. People do strange things for money, especially what they've been watching from the shadows their whole lives. My hands trembled as I took the photo. Everything I knew was upside down. Evelyn's disappearance, the inheritance, the forged signature, and Clara, the woman I'd started to trust, might have been the architect behind it all. I left Blake's office in a daze. Only one verse came to mind, echoing like thunder in my soul. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. I couldn't go home, not with that flash drive in my purse, not with Blake's words crashing in my ears. Instead, I drove. Past midnight, no destination, just the road and the storm gathering inside me. Clara, sweet, quiet Clara. She had tears in her eyes when she spoke about Evelyn. She touched her necklace every time she mentioned her name. Was it guilt? Or grief? I parked outside a 24-hour diner and called the only person I hadn't spoken to in years, my mother. She answered on the second ring. Helen? My throat tightened. I need to ask you something. Silence. Why did you let me change my name after Evelyn disappeared? More silence. Then, because they were watching us. Who? I don't know, but your sister. She had something. Documents, names. She told me if anything happened to her, I had to protect you. My breath caught. She said Clara was helping her. I froze. Helping? Yes. Clara gave her shelter for 3 days before she vanished. Your sister trusted her. Everything inside me flipped. I ended the call and drove straight to Clara's apartment. She opened the door in her robe, eyes red. She didn't look surprised. You figured it out, didn't you? She said quietly. I don't know what to believe. She stepped aside, letting me in. There's something you need to see. From her closet, she pulled out a metal box. Inside, photos, letters, Evelyn's journal. She was pregnant, Clara whispered. She didn't tell anyone but me. The father was someone powerful, connected to Blake's board. She was going to expose him. That's why she disappeared. I clutched the journal to my chest. My sister hadn't just run. She was taken, and Clara hadn't betrayed her. She had tried to save her. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Clara's living room, reading page after page of Evelyn's handwriting. Her voice came alive through ink. Fear, defiance, hope. She had been brave, braver than I ever was, and I had spent 20 years trying to forget her, trying to bury the truth with a different name and a different life. No more. The next morning, I walked into Blake's office and tossed Evelyn's journal on his desk. You want leverage? I said. You've got it. He flipped through it slowly, his eyes darkening. This is enough to take down Martin Hale and half the board. Good, I said. Then let's do it. He leaned back. You're different now. I've been silent too long. That week, we planned everything. Quietly. Clara helped trace the transactions through Hale's overseas accounts. Blake used his connections in the bank's compliance division. And me, I recorded every conversation, every meeting, every threat. We built a case too big to ignore. On Friday morning, at the quarterly investor call, I stood beside Blake at the podium. Before we begin, he said, there's a matter of integrity we must address. I stepped forward. This company has been used to conceal fraud and theft tied to the disappearance of a woman. My sister, Evelyn Grace Whitmore. Gasps echoed in the room. And when we displayed the documents, bank transfers, forged records, Evelyn's journal, the silence was louder than thunder. Martin Hale stood up, face pale. I demand an explanation. But security was already moving. He didn't even look at me as they escorted him out. That afternoon, the headlines exploded. Investment giant exposed in missing person fraud scandal. And for the first time in my life, I didn't hide. I stood in the light, where Evelyn always belonged.